Salut tout le monde, je suis Rory, je suis de retour ici. Today's video, very simple. One of my new students, Swapnil, he's looking to learn French, learn naturally. And I'm going to show you here the book that he's using to start. It's called Assimil. I've talked about it previously, but if you're a beginner trying to learn French or you're getting close to hitting intermediate, this is a book that you could use. Okay, so I'm showing you in the video here is from one of my live calls where I'm showing him how to use the book and how to get started. Keep in mind, this is the first call I had with him after he decided to join. So this is a setup call showing him how to use the resource. And then we're going to have following calls in the future, in the coming weeks, where you'll see exactly how he's progressing with French, us speaking in French as well. Okay. So enjoy and feel free to check out any of my other videos on the channel if you'd like to learn French. Okay. Au revoir. Simply, I'll basically show you through the Assimil book first of all. So basically how to use it. I'll give you all of the resources. So did you get that Google Drive link for the PDF and audio? Like, awesome. You can download that to your personal computer. So that's yours. You'll have that forever. And basically that's all you need for the Assimil book. But the first thing I want to do is just test your, say, reading level, because the Assimil book, it moves from lesson 1 up to lesson 113. Lesson 1's beginner, lesson 113 is intermediate. So if lesson 1 to 20, for example, is too easy, sometimes my students start and they're like, oh, I already know all this, don't need to start there, could start at lesson 21. You know what I mean? So I'll show you a couple of lessons here and then we'll know where you can start as your starting point. And then I'll show you how to use the book. So I'll pick one here. Yeah, let's do this one. Perfect. Share screen. There we go. Okay, so let me know if you can see that. Is that all good?
Yeah.
Perfect. So if you read, so this French side here, so if you read through that, don't look at the English and then just tell me, say, overall, if you read these 9 lines, overall percentage you understand. It might be 60%, it might be 90%. You know what I mean?
Should I read it loudly or?
No, that's okay. Just read it in, yeah, with your eyes. That's all good.
Okay. Most of it I got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What percentage would you say?
85%.
How much? 50 or 80?
85.
You said 85. Perfect. That's good. Awesome. And then refresh me. Did you say that your listening level is a bit higher or a bit lower than your reading level, would you say?
It will, I think a bit lower, but yeah, I can, nowadays I can understand many things. And I'm not sure whether it's the quality of audio that I'm listening, but if I'm trying to switch between various podcasts just to identify, but I'm able to understand.
Sure. Okay. That's fine. If it's near your reading level, that's all good. That's no problem. I've found with my students that it's a common thing where their listening level is a bit lower than their reading level. Listening is a bit harder to develop because with reading, you've got the answer right there. With listening, it's if you miss something and there's no subtitle, it's like, oh, well, I can never get the word. So
Like
that's
I'm listening a lot. Maybe that's why it's like from 4 5 months I'm listening constantly. 1 hour, 1.5. Maybe
for sure. Let me show you another one here. Let's do this one. Yep, sure. Let's do this one. So yeah, read this one and then I'll be able to tell as well. Oh, pardon me. Put that there.
I have to read this or you'll play the audio.
Yeah, same one. Same one for this one.
Okay.
Yep.
Got
How much do you think?
between 70 to 80%.
70 to 80. Perfect. That's good. I reckon if that, because that's lesson 93. So let's start you at, if I go to lesson, would you say 70 to 80 for that one?
Yeah.
Cool. The reason I want to check with you on this is because I do this for all my students. It's that we work on a not, oh, can you remember this grammar rule basis? We work on a percentage of overall understanding you can get on a conversation because we care about conversations, right? Because through learning the conversations, then you're able to build up your French level way faster and way more naturally. Like you want to be able to speak naturally, learn naturally than if you were to say, just learn grammar rules or just memorize certain vocabulary. So what I found a good range is 60 between 60 and 80% is very good. So anything over 80% can be a bit easy. So you might get a bit bored. And there's not as much to learn. But if you're down at like 50, 40%, you might get demotivated and it's hard to understand what's happening. Because if you're at 40 or 50%, that means every second sentence really, or half of a sentence, you don't understand. So if you're at 60 or 70%, let's say 70, that means there's 30% that you didn't fully understand. So you're able to learn that 30% each sentence. I think that's a good ratio, because even in English, there's certain words I don't know each day, like that come up in a sentence, but I can work it into the things I know. So if there's one new word and there's 10 words in the sentence, that's 10%. You know what I mean? So I think starting you at lesson 80 would be good because there's 113 lessons. So what that means is we'll start you at lesson 80. I'll show you, move to that one there. Yeah. So with you starting at lesson 80, that'll get you from, 80 to 113. And then after that point, we'll move straight into YouTube. So, we're together for 20 weeks just to see how you go. And with that, that means you'll be moving into YouTube probably, it obviously depends how fast you move through the lessons, but that's, how many is that? That's 33 lessons. So you're probably looking at around, I'm thinking February. I'm thinking start of February, mid-February, around there. We'll be moving into YouTube. So I could show you how to use YouTube then, but just for the moment, I'll show you Assimil. So you've watched a couple of my videos. Do you know sort of how the book works overall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, you read and listen at the same time, and if you don't know some word, you can just glance through the English translation
Yep.
and you repeat it. I think after some progress, you again repeat that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. So I know for you, a big focus is the speaking level. I've found once you get to say lesson 100 in Assimil and you've got a really good flow on the reading and listening, then we can start speaking and that's perfect. Before then, I want to first just see your reading and listening level, just have some really good confidence on that. Because when you've got confidence, then when you're speaking, you know the words, right? So you don't have to be scared and worried that, oh, I don't know how to make sentences and I don't even know the basic sentences, right? So it's like, you never hear, babies don't just start talking full sentences, right? Like none of us started like that. We listen and listen heaps and heaps and heaps. We do the reading to help with the listening, basically. So that's why our is good, reading and audio at the same time. So you can help, basically your ears and your eyes are helping each other. So yeah, basically I'll still run through the basic steps and then stop me if you've got any questions and I'll get them answered just to make sure you know exactly what to do. You can get started right away. Cool. So lesson 80 will start you here. So yeah, title, that's got audio. Each of these lines has audio. So yes, exactly. As you're reading, you just play the audio. The audio files you'll see, it's not one audio file for like all of the lines. It's broken up. So you play the first one, it'll end right there.
Right.
And then that gives you time. So basically, if you're playing the audio through, I'll just pretend that I'll play it. I'll say it out loud, right? Pendant la période des élections, il y a beaucoup de sondages. Perfect. So that audio will stop. Then I'll do a quick scan of the French and go, was there anything I didn't know? Let's say, I didn't know what this word meant. So I know that il y a beaucoup, so there are lots of. I don't know what this is. So I'll go over to the English and I'll read the sentence. So During the period of the elections, there are many opinion polls. Okay, so it's an opinion poll. So that's just like it's like a voting poll, how many people voted for which person, how many people voted for the other person. So now I know the meaning. Oh, it actually happens to be the title of the chapter, right, as well. So I can check that, right, tick. So now I quickly scan back over the French and go, okay, now I know what it means, right? During the election period, there's lots of opinion polls. Yeah. So now I know that tick, I'll move to the next one. Next. Yeah. Okay.
So in this four sentence, I know each and every word.
Perfect.
So how should I do that?
Keep going. Yep. Keep going. Because you told me that in lesson 93, which is coming up soon, your percentage was around, did you say 70? Was it 70%? Yeah. So that means that, say, in each line item, if there's 10 words, there might be two or three you don't know. Or even if you know the words, the structure you don't fully understand. Perfect. This is going to help you build that because with the comparison to the English and then back to the French, you're understanding and you're basically breaking down in your mind everything here without worrying about the grammar rules because we don't care about that. You just want to be able to understand the conversation. So that's what we're doing here. So if you see something that comes up here with the structure that doesn't make sense, like, oh, for example, why why do we say il y a beaucoup de? Why do we say de sondages and not just il y a beaucoup sondages? You know what I mean? Like things like that where it's like, oh, why we put that there? Or why wasn't it a DU instead of a DE? So things like that, you can note that down. I'll even I'll create a spreadsheet. All of your questions, you could even type into there. This will be a Google Sheet. So you can get on your phone. You can have it on your laptop as well. Type it in there and I'll put all my answers there. And then we've got that for, however long we're together, right? For the full 20 weeks, you have all your questions. And then that gives us a good place to go back to. Sound good?
Yep.
Cool. So yeah, basically after you've done that first sentence, you'll move through to the second one. So second one, qui donne parfois des résultats curieux. Okay. So there we're saying, okay, qui, that's referring to sondage, right? Les sondages, qui donne parfois, that sometimes give interesting results, right? Or curious. Curious, it also means interesting. We could put that there for the English. So there you go. That's the next one. And the one after, continue through. You'll definitely know all of these words, right? Pardon, monsieur, voulez-vous répondre à quelques questions, s'il vous plaît? Excuse me, sir, will you answer to a few questions, please? Pour qui avez-vous l'intention de voter? Aucune idée. Okay. Who do you have the intention to vote for? No idea. So you'll see in these lessons as well, sometimes like here, this is like a commentary. This is like a sort of like newspaper article, or something you might see online if you're looking on Twitter or, LinkedIn, anything online, you're going to see just that's like a general on talking to the public. But then we move into a conversation, right? So this is now an interview because we've got this is like a street interview, like, oh, pour qui avez-vous l'intention de voter? Right? Who are you going to vote for? And the person says, no idea. So this is good. It's a good balance. Some lessons are going to be full conversation driven, and then some lessons are going to be full commentary. The conversation's more important for us. But the thing is, the voice actors that you'll hear, they're very good. So even when it's something like a commentary and it's like, oh, they're not even talking to each other, it's just someone narrating something like a story, they still talk really well. So it makes it interesting. So we can continue through that. Oh, another thing is the notes. Don't stress too much about the notes. What I'd say is come back at the end and you can like read them all. So you see that it's like attached to basically when they put that number there, that just means it's linked to the note. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Linked up. So that's where I talked about aucun. So it's just talking about this word here. So it's saying it's more absolute than pas de, right? So basically saying this guy could have said pas d'idée, but he said aucune idée to say I have absolutely zero idea, right? So it gives you some background, right? But it's not that important to read the notes. You can if you like that. So yeah, then you move through the rest of them. So I'd go through, read the French with the audio, then compare to the English. Anything that comes up doesn't make sense, I'd be noting that down. As I said, I'll send you the spreadsheet, and yeah, basically all the way through to the end. And what you probably find is you might understand 80% of this lesson. That's fine, because by the time, if you're doing a lesson a day at that rate, like let's say 2 lessons every day, but speed of a lesson a day. For example, today or whenever you start, might be tomorrow, lesson 80, 81, day after, 80, 81, day after, 82, 83. So on the third day, you start 82, 83. That means every day you're doing one lesson speed. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. Easy. So
Every one lesson, right?
what's that?
Every day one lesson. That is the target, minimum target.
Yep. Yep. Exactly right. Because what that means is if you're doing like to do the one lesson, you could do lesson 80 and the next day 81, then the next day 82, 83. On some of the harder lessons, you might want to repeat the next day. You know what I mean? If you really found a lot of things that were, say, difficult, you note down those questions, I can answer them. You go back into the lesson again with those questions I've answered for you for that lesson, the things you were having problem with, and then you can continue through. So yeah, were there any other questions? Perfect. We've got the exercises as well. So you'll see here the exercise. This is like, exercise 1. So it gives you the English translation as well over here. And it's got the French over here. Now, with the French here, that's giving you audio also. So treat it the exact same as you have for all of this. So it's the same thing, right? Except here, it'll just make smaller sentences that don't really basically, they don't follow on. So sentence 2 doesn't come from sentence 1. You know what I mean? It's not like a conversation like the main lesson. They're just little phrases from things that were seen in the lesson up above. So if you say something in the French here, you go, I'm not sure if that makes sense. Go and look for part of the sentence up here because you'll probably find it. Don't spend too much time, just spend 20, 30 seconds, see if you can find it. If you can't, look at the English, no problem. Same thing. There'll always be an image, a sort of cartoon graphic here. And so it's usually like a joke. Sometimes you'll get the joke, sometimes you won't. That's okay. I never got all of the jokes. Sometimes you can't understand the French or it's quite interesting. We've also got the fill in the blanks down here. So this one, my students have found is the hardest section. Simple reason is, how I was telling you that we've got the inputs, reading and listening, and outputs, speaking and writing. This is essentially creating sentences, which is what you need to do to be good at speaking and writing. So this is why they find it a bit more difficult, because if, let's say, for example, they don't look at the answers here and they just have to put in the words here, right? Have to put in for whom, right? You might be able to get it, but often as it gets more advanced and intermediate level, this is sort of a high beginner, low intermediate level. It's going to be more and more difficult because if they can't read and listen and fully understand it, their brain hasn't made it so simple for them to be able to create the sentence, right? So that's why we focus on reading, listening, getting really good understanding, and then we jump straight into speaking. Writing isn't as important because if you can speak well, you'll be able to write well, guaranteed. Yeah, because speaking is harder than writing. Because speaking is like writing, except you have to have a good accent as well and pronunciation and flow. So it's a bit different. And that is it. That's a full lesson. You'll see that the exact same in all the other lessons. So yeah, that's how it is.
Oh, but what if I go through very fast? As in, because
Yeah.
the text that I'm seeing, I think I'll go very fast.
Hmm.
I just feel that.
For sure. Absolutely. Go to the next lesson. Yeah. Go to the next. That's complete. That's awesome because this is all about. This is a volume thing. So learning French, it's like getting in a certain number of conversations each day, as in comprehending them, understanding them. And then once you built up a good enough level, speaking those conversations, and now you're doing input and output. And that's basically all you have to do. Because there's 100 different learning methods I could show you. This one kicks simple. It's simply conversations in, and then once you start speaking, conversations out, right? Assimil, and then we use YouTube as well. Once you've built up, and I think once you've, got a real good confidence with these lessons, and once you're saying to me, hey, like this is pretty easy, let's get moving. Perfect. YouTube time. You'll see a big gap between the Assimil audio and the YouTube audio. I can already see for you that will be a main focus. That's normal though. With my other students, they also, let's just say that the audio in Assimil, it's perfect to get you to an intermediate level. But once you're at the intermediate level, we need to increase the difficulty of the audio. So then it's like, because here it's like a protected sort of French, as in the voice actors speak really clearly, really nicely. They pronounce everything perfectly. When we move over to YouTube, that's just made for French people, or it's just, it's like street French, slang. They talk fast. They talk over each other as well. They don't pronounce things perfectly. So it's harder to understand. And that's why YouTube's so good, because it's getting you really, really ready for real life French conversations. And this can get you to intermediate, but to get to advanced or fluent, we've got to use real life resources. So that's where we go directly to YouTube. So if you're moving fast, let's say less than 80, you go through, it might take you 10, 15 minutes. Perfect. Less than 81. Do that as well. Or you know what you could do as well, actually? This is completely up to you. You could do less than 80, and then you could do less than 90.
Okay.
As in, you could do 80, 90 first day. Second day, 81, 91. Yeah. And you could move through that way. So that might make it a bit more interesting for you. It's completely up to you. You can mix and match the lessons.
So
As I said, I wouldn't go back behind 80 simply because your level's already good enough. You don't need that, because you're at a strong beginner, even low intermediate. Like we spoke, you're at A2 level easily. So I don't know where your listening is at. Once you play the audio, just see how much you're able to understand. If you're finding that the audio is also quite easy, what you could do is, for example, on this lesson, don't read it, just play the audio, see how much you can understand, and then check yourself. As in, after you've listened to it, you might miss something or you're not sure. Verify. So read the French, right? After you've listened to it. This is where, if you're finding the audio is too easy as well, you can try that as well.
okay. And so basically, you are telling I don't need to understand 100%. So even if I get 80, 85%, I need to move. I need to move. I need.
That's perfect, because what we're saying there is, okay, that means you've got maybe one question in that sentence. Yeah. Like there might be one word you don't understand, or there might be, because often if we're looking over here to the English, you're able to find the word. Like, for example, un appart. Well, right there, apartment. Okay. Now you know that word. You can usually find the words, but the main thing is the structure and why we're using certain words in certain places. You know what I mean? That makes sense, right? So for those things, if you're getting, because imagine you get 100% of this lesson right. What have you learned? Like, what could you learn if you already know 100%? Like, if I bring out a children's book here and it's made for, like, 3-year-old French babies, like, what are you going to learn? Zero. So instead of focusing on 100%, we're going to get 60, 70, 80%, because if you get 80, 85%, there's 20 to 15% you don't know. That's the thing you can note down in the spreadsheet, and that's the thing you're going to learn. So then your level gets better. So that's why when we went to lesson 93 and you were like, oh, 70, 75%, I'm like, okay, perfect. Let's start you with lesson 80, because around here, you're probably going to be 70 to 80% in these lessons, right? By the time you get to 110, you might be, 70%, 65, 70%. That's perfect. Yeah.